Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Samuel Mercer, and I'll be giving a presentation on the adaptive leadership of General George S. Patton. Here we have the behavioral theory managerial grid. This assesses a leader's concern for his people as much as their concern for production, for task, the success of their mission. As a transformational leader, you have to apply a few different characteristics. One of them being that you apply the premise that people will follow leaders that inspire and motivate them. Patton believed in the motivation of his men and was noted to spend time not only at the front lines of the battle, fighting alongside his men, but alongside his wounded soldiers at their bedside. This was unheard of for high-ranking officers because they typically did not sit at the front lines of combat. They sat behind and addressed the combat to tactically survey things. Patton was focused on long-term goals. He was determined to make things work because he saw long-term potential for his success. He saw the potential in his men and in the resources available to him. Patton was able to mold organizations into cohesion, into a unified team. In Patton's famous speech to the 12th Corps, he motivated and inspired through his devout belief in molding his men into units that live, sleep, eat, and fight as a cohesive team. In Alden Hatch's General George S. Patton, Patton's greatest quality as a leader was his ability to infuse his troops with his own martial ardor, meaning he was able to rub off and pass on his drive to fight, his will to fight, his motivation and inspiration, and the burning. And this was extremely successful. For situational theory, Patton demonstrates that being put into various leadership roles couldn't keep him from leading men as an effective and cohesive unit. He demonstrates this whether he was commanding armored divisions or infantry. He adapted to his situation and was able to wring out the success that he was able to see in his vision. He brought the potential and inspirations that he had to fruition. For adaptive leadership, there's a few traits that you would want to demonstrate, exemplify. George Patton distinguished himself with many of these adaptive leadership traits. One of them being confidence. General George Patton was confident in his ability to motivate his troops from the front lines. He knew that he was able to fight alongside his troops. He was confident that doing so would earn their trust. He was also alongside them when they were wounded and laid up with life, limb, or eyesight either gone or damaged. And he knew that this would earn their trust and their confidence, and that he wouldn't just be a high brass walking around waving a finger, that he was alongside them just as much as above them in authority. Patton was resilient. He was not easily broken down. He was able to learn from his mistakes and learn tact. This is seen when he was demoted in the Hawaiian Division as a major, when he was too blunt and inappropriately brusque when addressing the issues that he saw in a combat exercise to his senior leaders. He was able to learn from this and discover how to be more tactful and more motivational and inspirational and effective as a communicator. He was driven. Patton believed in total physical and moral destruction of his opponent to completely halt their strategic and combative ability and effectiveness. You had to not only damage, their resources and their troops physically, but you also had to break down their motivation, their inspiration, their will to fight. Patton was a fantastic communicator. At first he wasn't, but he learned through mistakes, as an adaptive leader should. And he became one of the greatest, speech givers to his troops. And this, if you've seen the movie General George S. Patton, he demonstrates this in his speech to the 12th Corps. Troops would say that they were motivated and they admired and respected him from a distance when they had never even met the guy to the face. General George S. Patton, he set precedents for what it meant to be an adaptive leader. He expressed valuable traits in doing so. He knew himself and his soldiers, and he knew that he was tactically proficient enough to present himself at the front lines and at the side of his wounded men, even though he hated hospitals. He believed that earning their trust and motivating them individually was just as important as winning the battle, because it was a significant element of winning the battle. And this was evident in their own behavior and his track record as a leader. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Have a good day.